Before the modern age of printing, creating written documents was a slow and painstaking process. Imagine a world without the books and newspapers we see everywhere today. In ancient times, scribes would copy texts by hand, a task that could take months or even years for a single book. This made books incredibly rare and expensive, available only to the very wealthy or powerful institutions like monasteries. Each copy was unique but also prone to human error. The spread of knowledge was, as you can imagine, incredibly slow. This was a world where information was a precious, handcrafted commodity, not something that could be easily shared with the masses. The first major breakthrough came with the invention of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg around the year 1440. This was a truly revolutionary moment in human history. Gutenberg used movable type, individual metal letters that could be arranged to form words and sentences. Once a page was set, it could be inked and pressed onto paper, creating multiple identical copies. This was a vast improvement over hand copying, but it was still a very direct and forceful process. The metal type made a direct, heavy impression on the paper, which could sometimes be inconsistent and would wear down the delicate metal letters over time. This method, known as letterpress printing, dominated the world for centuries. It was the technology that fueled the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the Enlightenment. It allowed for the mass production of texts like the Bible, spreading ideas and literacy on an unprecedented scale. However, the process remained labor-intensive. Setting the type by hand was a highly skilled job, and the direct pressure of the press limited the types of surfaces that could be printed on. The images, often made from woodcuts or engravings, were also subject to the same wear and tear, limiting the quality and longevity of the printing plates. So while letterpress was a monumental leap forward, it had its clear limitations. The world was hungry for more information, produced even faster and more cheaply. Newspapers were becoming more common, and the demand for illustrated books and magazines was growing. A new method was needed, one that could print high-quality images and text with greater speed and efficiency. The stage was set for another great innovation in printing, one that would not rely on a direct, forceful impression, but on a more subtle and ingenious chemical principle. The world was waiting for offset printing. The story of offset printing begins not with a grand design but with a happy accident. Its roots lie in the invention of lithography in 1796 by a German author and actor named Alois Senefelder. He discovered that he could use a greasy substance to draw an image on a flat slab of limestone. When he wetted the stone, the water was repelled by the greasy image but absorbed by the rest of the stone. Oily ink would then stick only to the greasy drawing, which could be pressed directly onto paper. This was revolutionary because it was a planographic process, meaning it printed from a flat surface, not a raised or engraved one. The key figure who turned this lithographic principle into what we now call offset printing was an American printer named Ira Washington Rubel. The story goes that in 1904, while operating his lithographic press in Nutley, New Jersey, he made a mistake. A worker in his shop accidentally failed to feed a sheet of paper into the machine. As a result, the inked image from the stone plate was transferred not onto paper, but onto the rubber-covered impression cylinder that was meant to press the paper against the stone. On the next cycle, a sheet of paper was fed through properly, and it received an image from both sides. What Rubel noticed was remarkable and changed everything. The image transferred from the stone to the rubber cylinder, and then from the rubber cylinder to the back of the next sheet of paper, was incredibly sharp and clear. In fact, it was much sharper and cleaner than the image printed directly from the stone plate itself. The soft, flexible rubber surface was able to transfer the ink to the paper more evenly and completely than the hard, rigid stone could. It created a much more defined and perfect impression, a kiss of ink rather than a hard stamp. Realizing he had stumbled upon something significant, Rubel began to experiment. He understood that this indirect or offset method had huge potential. He quickly set about building a press specifically designed to use this principle. His machine would first transfer the image from the printing plate to a rubber blanket, and then from that blanket onto the paper. This simple two-step process was the birth of the offset printing press. It was an invention born not from years of theoretical research but from a moment of observant curiosity in a busy print shop, a classic tale of innovation through serendipity. The first offset printing machine that Ira Rubel built was a clever adaptation of existing technology. It consisted of 3 main cylinders rotating in sequence. The first cylinder, called the plate cylinder, held the thin metal printing plate which carried the inked image. This plate was a successor to Senefelder's heavy limestone slab. As this cylinder turned, it came into contact with a second cylinder, the blanket cylinder, which was covered in a sheet of soft rubber. The ink from the plate was offset onto this rubber blanket. This was the crucial intermediate step that defined the entire process and gave it its name. The process was both simple and brilliant. The paper itself never actually touched the metal printing plate. Instead, the third cylinder, the impression cylinder, pressed the paper against the rubber blanket cylinder. The soft rubber surface then transferred the ink smoothly and evenly onto the paper, creating the final printed image. This indirect method was far gentler on the printing plates than the direct pressure of letterpress. The plates lasted much longer because they weren't being hammered against the paper surface. This made the whole operation much more cost-effective and durable for long print runs. When you compare offset printing to the older techniques, the advantages become immediately clear. Letterpress, for instance, required heavy metal type to be pressed directly and forcefully into the paper. This often left a noticeable indentation on the page and could result in uneven ink coverage. It was also very slow to set the type by hand. Lithography, while printing from a flat surface, still involved pressing a rigid stone against the paper. Offset printing, with its flexible rubber blanket, could conform to the texture of the paper, producing a consistently crisp and high-quality image every single time without damaging the plate. This new technology completely transformed the production of books and newspapers. Suddenly, printing could be done much faster and more cheaply. The thin, flexible printing plates were far less expensive to produce, and could be made quickly from photographic negatives. This made it possible to include more photographs and detailed illustrations in newspapers and magazines, changing their look forever. The speed of the new rotary offset presses meant that daily newspapers could increase their circulation dramatically, bringing news and information to more people than ever before in a vibrant, visual, and affordable format. There are some fascinating little details about offset printing that highlight its ingenuity. One interesting fact is that the image on the printing plate is right-reading, meaning you can read it normally. In older methods like letterpress, the type has to be set as a mirror image, or wrong reading, so that it comes out correctly when pressed onto paper. In offset printing, the image is first transferred to the rubber blanket, which reverses it. Then, when the blanket prints onto the paper, it reverses it again, resulting in a final right-reading image. This makes the process of creating and checking the plates much more straightforward for the press operators. Another intriguing aspect is its versatility. Because the soft rubber blanket can conform to different surfaces, offset printing isn't just limited to smooth paper. It can be used to print on a wide variety of materials, including cardboard, plastic, and even metal. This is why it became the dominant method for everything from glossy magazines and book covers to food packaging and beverage cans. Its ability to produce high-quality results on an industrial scale across so many different mediums is a key reason for its long-standing success. It is a workhorse technology that quietly shapes the visual landscape of our commercial world. Even in our increasingly digital age, the importance of offset printing cannot be overstated. While digital printing is perfect for short, quick print runs, offset printing remains the king of high-volume production. The vast majority of physical books, magazines, newspapers, catalogs, and brochures you encounter are produced using this method. Its combination of quality, speed, and cost-effectiveness for large quantities is still unmatched. It is the technology that makes mass communication through print economically viable, ensuring that physical media continues to have a place in our lives. In conclusion, offset printing is one of the most important inventions in the history of communication. It took the principles of lithography and, through an accidental discovery, revolutionized them. It democratized information by making books and newspapers cheaper and more accessible, filling them with vibrant images that were previously too difficult or expensive to reproduce on a mass scale. From the cereal box on your breakfast table to the novel on your bedside stand, offset printing has left a clear, sharp, and lasting impression on the fabric of our modern world, and it continues to do so every single day.